Hello, Bookworms. Welcome to the Weekend Readers Book Club. Thank you for joining us. In this episode, we are discussing the 2020 released sequel to the book that I thought was completely batshit crazy. One of Us is Lying. We just finished reading the sequel, One of Us is Next, by Karen M McManus. Now, this story is not a continuation, but it does take place 1 year after One of Us is Lying is set in the same city of Bayview. In this book, we joined Maeve, who we were introduced to in the first book, Phoebe, Knock, and a few other characters, and also recurring characters from the first book as an evil game of truth and dare is played. Now, with this game, the truths are some hard-hitting personal secrets. The dares are completely crazy, and the motive behind this game that's being played is the string puller behind it all is paying homage to Simon, who in the first book lost his life and started all the issues with Bayview in that first book, One of Us is Lying. In this story, our main characters, some who do play the truth or dare game, some who don't, and get their darkest secrets revealed, have to try and find out who is the string puller and paying homage to Simon and trying to get this game stopped before people get hurt. So, I have read this book, and here is my book review for One of Us is Next. I call One of Us is Lying a completely batshit and crazy book. However, One of Us is Next seems a lot toned down, and I think portion of that is solely because this book here, it's an online text or online alert that goes out, and people have to respond to play truth or dare. And if you don't respond, then your truth comes out. If you text back dare, you do the dare. I found that more realistic on something that would happen in real life than somebody trying to commit suicide in the first book just to prove a point, to share people's deep, darkest secrets because they were potentially bullied or left out of the conversation or the friend group or whatever. So with that being said, I actually enjoyed One of Us is Next a hell of a lot better than One of Us is Lying, in the sense that I wish these stories were reverse. If Karen M McManus, in my opinion, took this story and gave it to the characters in the first book, and then we had what happened in the first book be transferred to the second book, in my mind that makes a hell of a lot more sense. And I came away from reading this going, damn, I really enjoyed this book, in the sense that the feeling I got reading the first book, where it was just completely crazy and bonkers, I didn't really come away with that feeling in this book, and I felt actually quite pleasant reading it, in the sense that once it's all completed, it sort of closes off the arc of how the first and second book combine. I really enjoyed the characters that we had in here, the three school kids, their supporting peers, and also the recurring characters from the first book that are still in this book, and they still have a story to play, the original characters as well, which is really interesting to see. This book does get a little bit crazy at the end. I mean, as I said, that it does bring close the arc of both stories. This book does get a little bit crazy at the end, with a little teenager trying to make a homemade bomb to blow shit up and actually blow shit up. But in saying that, I mean, with the presence of this story being captivated in your phone, it's an online game on your phone that you can play Is it that far-fetched that somebody's going to go online and research that stuff? Probably not. So it made sense in relation to the storyline and the content matter at hand. So, yeah, it did get a little bit crazy at the end. But in saying that, overall, I enjoyed this book a hell of a lot better than the first book. I'm just saying. Now, after reading One of Us Is Next, is this book going to be going onto my bookshelf? This one's a hard decision because I actually really enjoyed this book. But knowing that it is book 2 in a series and the sequel to the batshit crazy book, I'm like, no. Because if the first book was enjoyable, then I would have the need and the want to actually read the second book. However, if we skip forward, say, a couple of years, I read the second book, I sort of need to read the first book to get some idea of who these recurring characters are and what has happened previously, and then it means I got to read the first book, and I was like, oh gosh. So with that being said, unfortunately, One of Us Is Next won't be going onto my bookshelf. However, I will say, if you have read One of Us Is Lying and you enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it, and you know that there is a sequel, One of Us Is Next, I would say give it a whirl, because it was, for me, a hell of a lot more enjoyable and a hell of a lot more relatable in the subject matter than what we got in the first book. So, unfortunately, One of Us Is Next by Karen M McManus, unfortunately, you've not made my bookshelf. Now, as it customs here on the Weekend Readers Book Club, as one book closes, another book has to open. And it is now time to find out what the Weekend Readers, the next readers, and Bookworms, we can confirm that we are going to be reading The Club by Ellery Lloyd. Now, this book here, I don't know how I ended up with it. I potentially may have seen it on a book review show that I was watching on YouTube that somebody recommended to read. It was in my ebook pile. So we're going to give The Club by Ellery Lloyd a go, and we'll see if The Club is an enjoyable read. So Bookworms, that was my review and discussion of One of Us Is Next by Karen M McManus, a book that I did enjoy, a book that I felt was better than the first book, and a book that I felt that potentially the subject matter should have been in the first book, and then the subject matter from the first book transferred to the second book. But in saying that, I've never wrote a book, so they're just my opinions, and that was our discussion of One of Us Is Next by Karen M McManus. You can feel free to follow or engage with us. Our socials are Instagram, Weekend Readers Book Club, or YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from, The Weekend Readers. Until next time, thank you again for joining us, and Bookworms, happy reading.